नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ नमः प्रणवार्थाय शुद्धज्ञानैकमूर्तये निर्मलाय प्रशान्ताय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We'll read the 13th verse. Prajnavang manasi, no, yachedvang manasi prajnah.
यच्छेद्त्वं मनसु प्राज्ञः
Tadyached jnana atmani.
तदच्येज्ञान आत्मनि
ज्ञान आत्मनि
Jnanamatmani mahati niyached.
ज्ञानमात्मनि महति नियच्छेत्
नियच्छेत्
Tadyached shanta atmani.
तद्यच्छेत् शान्त
शान्त
आत्मनि
आत्मनि.
It looks very similar to a couple of mantras we studied earlier. This is really a mantra meant for nididhyasanam. Many times we get a question saying, okay, how do I go about learning? What should I do? In our other class, we've been discussing this as well. What should I do? How should I go about it? How should I understand it? It is something which has to be repeatedly done. And Shastra helps us by giving us a direction to do that. Clearly, this jnanam, atma jnanam, is not going to be available by accident. There is a certain initial desire to get this knowledge, which should prompt one into the action of saying, where do I find it? Who do I go and get it from? What preparation should I do in order to get there? All of that, those questions we should address. At that stage, if one has not gone into the Shastra and the words of the Shastra, one might find a little challenge because I don't know what is the preparation. I don't know what is the knowledge that I am seeking truly. I don't even know that I'm seeking knowledge. I may simply have arrived at a conclusion that what I want is to be happy, which is itself by itself a great step forward. I may have only come up to that till I enter into the words of the Shastra. Even as I said that sentence, it occurred to me that I'm saying, enter into the words of the Shastra. How do you enter into any words? Because that's an issue we're going to be discussing now. What does that mean, enter into the words of the Shastra? in this mantra and in the two previous mantras, I think 10 and 11, if I remember right, it's been talking about saying, if you take the literal meaning of those verses, Indriyebhya para hyarthaha, artha is sense objects. So if you take the vakshartha, it says that our sense objects are higher, better than senses. That itself is confusing enough. What do you mean it's higher? All those questions come. It doesn't stop there. It gives us further Indriyebhya param manaha. What do you mean? Why is one superior to or higher than Indriyas, etc.? So what happens? You listen to those words and the teacher unfolds it. Not just the word meaning, but the lakshyartha, intended meaning. What is it that Shruti is trying to tell us? Therefore, that's one of the reasons why Shruti itself says you can't do it without a guru, because you read that, you really get the vakshyartha, or you assume a certain lakshyartha. Meaning, assume this is what it's trying to say, based on my experience, my knowledge, etc. One assumes certain things. Clearly, that's going to lead us down the wrong path. That's aside. But that is why it is said, when you do Shravanam, it is words of the Shastra, not just by reading by myself, but by listening to somebody who can actually unfold is a good word. Open it up for me and see what it says. So in the process, what are you doing? Shravanam and Mananam. You're looking at those words of the Shastra. It's a very good example for that. The Guru opens it up for you, and then it keeps running in your head. That is Mananam. Oh, he said like this. Artha, I should understand the Artha like this. Otherwise, if I just take the literal translation of Artha, it doesn't fit, it doesn't make any logical sense. So you keep thinking about that. That Mananam goes on and on and on. You think after the Shravanam, a certain period of Shravanam, one goes back and listens, thinks about it. But what happens when you finish Shravanam and go back? You're told, okay, there is no tomato in the house. Please go and get some tomatoes and some potatoes and half a kilo of bhindi and some 100 grams of hari mirch, green chilies, and some small amount of ginger, whatever else. And don't forget the kottamalli, okay? Now your mind is still running. What does Indriyebhya para hyartaha mean? Hartaha para. What did he say in the class? It's running in your head. If that's happening, please take a piece of paper and write down all of that. Otherwise you're going to be in trouble. You're bound to forget one or the other and come back home and get to know a lot about yourself which you didn't know. You will be told a lot of things which you thought you didn't know. So you go on. That process is going on and on. So each of these Indriya param manaha, manasatta para buddhi, and buddhi is also something that is para, mahat. Oh, what is that mahat? Why does it call mahat? Then it becomes even more difficult. Avyakta. But this is the process of Shravanam Mananam. Those two verses starting with Artha being better than Indriya, and on till it comes to Sa Kashta, Sa Paragatihi. Somewhere it has to stop. That stop. Contemplative thinking continues to happen. Problem is that we are still in the Jagat. I cannot do 24/7 contemplative thinking because I have to attend to my work in the office. I have to attend to other things at home. I have to take my son for football practice. All of that is happening. So 24/7 mananam can happen only after sannyasa, formal sannyasa. But till then, what do? I do continue to do whenever I get a window. I do Shravanam, I do Mananam. I'm still a brahmachari, a grahastha. I have responsibilities to take care of. So I do all of that. But I never let go of the Mananam. When I have to attend to other things, Mananam is in the background. Like a Shruti. In a music concert, you have a Shruti going on and on in the background in our classical Indian music. And then whenever that window opens up, comes up in front. Not only that, whenever I'm doing something thinking about something, constantly my mind is trying to check how does it fit with what Shastra is telling me? Is that a good example for that? Because don't have easy examples. So constantly mind is, because that is in the background, even when I'm doing office work, something happens in the office. Oh, this is a good example for why buddhi is para manaha. Because mind is still constantly active. So what happened? The Guru opens out examples which are easy to understand. And the easiest examples to understand is from the Sthula Prapancham. Because that I can see, I can sense, I can feel. Shastra doesn't worry too much about that. It makes assumptions about the readiness of the student who has come this far, saying that I don't have to go into the Sthula Srila. But Sthula is a very good example to handle. And in that, we have several examples that are given to us. Simplest of ones which are given in Chandogya Mritika eva satyam. Or gold is a satyam of all gold ornaments, and so on. 8, 9 examples are given. Then you get slightly more, go further into it, and the thought process carries on. You say this table in front of you, and say that is, table is only a name and form. Table resolves into wood. That's why, you say touch wood in the Western thinking. Wood representing, now here's something even more interesting. Wood is not wood for them when you say touch wood. Wood is a cross. So it resolves into the cross. It resolves into the cross means what? It resolves into Christ and into the religious words. Like that, we have examples which we can think of. And our famous example of, I love this, Angavastram, Veshti, handkerchief, unstitched clothes. A brahmachari goes to the shop and buys, says, I need maybe 7 meters for a dhoti or veshti. Maybe I need 3 or 3.5 meters for an angavastram. And if I have half a meter, I can make 3 handkerchiefs. Make means or just cut into pieces. That's it. There's nothing else to do. And then you look at that veshti. Now it has got a shape, it has got a form, it's got a utility. And in that veshti, through that veshti, through each of those dhotis, through each of those angavastram, through each of those handkerchiefs, he says, I see only fabric. All of the fabrics, there's only one fabric from which I have so many dhotis, so many angavastram, so many, nothing, it's just been cut into pieces. So what happened to all those things? Varieties of things, number of things, they resolve into the fabric. You take the dhoti and say, let me see, where is the fabric in this dhoti? Can I find a corner where there's no fabric? Can I find an element within this dhoti where there's no fabric? You can't. The entire dhoti, I'm talking about the physical world, so there are certain limitations and examples, please remember that, is pervaded by fabric. Dhoti, the name, the form is totally vyapta. You argue all that, you think about it. This is what is the mananam going on all the time. Therefore, in this universe, in this jagat, can I make a similar parallel and say everything that I see, I perceive, although there looks like a lot of variety, if I can see it and see it resolving into the one thing, which is the karanam for this, for every one of them. There is a karanam at the source of that object. Because it's difficult to visualize because of varieties in the world and say there is only one cause, we use this example, the upamana. And then say, okay, but the fabric did not automatically become a dhoti or become a angavastram. Something else happened to it. What happened? That what happened was a person who understood that I need 7 meters for a dhoti, he measured that and cut it into 7-meter length. What did he use? Certain knowledge, certain skill sets. This knowledge and skill set is separate from the object. But the material cause of each of these is the same. The fellow who cut it, maybe the tailor, goes home and does something else. You don't bring him home after you got the veshti, you're the cause of that veshti, please come with me. You can't, you don't do that. But you can, having understood that there is this material cause, there is this intelligent cause, and that this in the Jagat, then go back to Shastra and says, look, in this Jagat you see all the varieties, tangible, intangible, small, big, near, far, everything. Thula, Sukshma. There is only one Karanam. Both the material and the intelligence capacity required is only one Karanam. Difficult to understand. So Shastra uses, as you will see in the further the things, Bhashyakara himself uses some upama, our famous rope snake. We also use other examples. So this is how we look at those two verses, which we're now going to look at in a different way here. And do Shravanam and Mananam. repeatedly. Go back to the verse and read that verse again. We spend some time on that verse, but how much of it is actually operating in the thinking? Then if you get a window, the students talk among each other. This is how I interpreted what Swamiji said. This is how I understood what Swamiji said. Is that the way you looked at it? Because each person's background experience is different. It's a very good thing to exchange and compare. So the Mananam continues. He said all this. As somebody said the other day in the class, I can understand it. These words are, very clear. Satyam, Mithya. But I don't feel it. How do I experience it? There is nothing to experience and nothing to feel. It is simply a matter of gaining that understanding. So in this ladder of understanding which is given in those two verses, in Shravanam and Mananam, itself you can have Padav. I always remember Amitabh Bachchan and KBC when Kaun Banega Crorepati. You look at the whole Jagat, our first impression is of the physical things, the Sthula Prapancham. And when you look at the Sthula Prapancham, there you can look at a number of examples and actually reduce the entire Sthula into, although there are multiple material, this thing into one undivided cause. That itself is a great exercise by itself. Because what I am trying to understand that the Shastra says there is only one source, one Karanam for the entire Jagat, and that Karanam is you. My God, I thought I had understood everything. I had got the whole picture and I had assumed that there is a cause. I am there, the cause is there, whatever that cause is. Now Shastra says that cause is you. So at one level, you look at a dhoti resolving into fabric, and the fabric resolving into the yarn, the warp and the weft, and then that resolving into the fiber and so on. But as you define each prapancham, universe, one than of fabric becomes the universe for multiple products. Dhotis and angavastram and handkerchiefs and whatever else you can think of. That is the whole. Now what? And then I have so many veshtis, so many this thing, so that if you can put them together, it goes into one than of fabric. At some point, I start looking at saying, okay, therefore there is this individual items, and for that there is a samashti. And when I look at I, because I is the search that we are doing, Shastra says, you are everything. How do I understand that? There is that I know I have hands, legs, brain, I hope, etc. And so has everybody else. The second stage of understanding, first the physical world, then you have the Sukshma Prapancham. In each of these, I look at saying there are individuals. In my concept of I have the Sthula Sharira, I have also all the Sukshma components. The individual Sthula Sharira, the Upanishads call Vaishvanara. But when you put all the sthulas together, all the eyes, all the noses, all the heart, all the pancreas, if you look at them, where do they come from? There is a function. There is a commonality there. It is not that whole totality, samashti, is from where all these come. They are not individual items. They cannot exist without the total. That total is called Virat. Virat is the darshana that Arjuna got. He saw the whole thing, the whole physical world of men and women into that Virat. Vishwarupa Darshanam. Mind finds difficult to, it boggles to visualize that. It is endless, beginningless, endless. How do you visualize a physical object which is beginningless, which is endless? No adi, no madhyama, no anta. And then you go into the Sukshma Jagat. You have similar looking at this thing there. That is the next step in the whole process. Shastra says that the senses are subservient to manas. Without manas, senses cannot operate. Manas pervades all senses. Manas is more sukshma. I have to understand that. All right, I have made an effort. I've attended several lectures. I've got an idea now. And then there are all these examples even in here of the Ratha. All that gives me a sense that when I look at the Sukshma, which is not the physical things, there also at each level, I can actually look at the Samashti. Samashti Manas, Samashti Buddhi. But at some point, I have to look at Samashti. These individual Sukshma Sharira, when viewed together, the Sharira is a word you have to be very careful with. Sarirana, immediately we say hands and legs and things. No. That totality of all of that is called Hiranyagarbha. As we saw in these mantras, the totality of all buddhi, the samashti of all buddhi, which itself has been brought into by saying everything else resolves into the buddhi, intellect, is itself that individual buddhi I have itself is caused by, is pervaded by the samashti buddhi called Mahat or Hiranyagarbha. That is the second stage of understanding, switching from the microcosm to the macrocosm. From understanding that microcosm cannot exist without the macrocosm. At all levels you can do this. That macrocosm we call Ishvara sometimes. Krishna's form was seen by Arjuna. Hiranyagarbha is the Sukshma component of Samashti. Shastra helps us go step by step into the understanding of that samashti, Ishvara. If you take all of these together, which is the karanam for the entire jagat, including my body, mind, sense complex. Therefore, we say that jagat karanam Brahma Ishvara is I. Everything else I thought was I becomes part of the jagat, both the sthula and the sukshma jagat, which resolve into Ishvara. Then comes the third stage, next padav. When even this Mahat resolves into Avyakta, Maya. You start with the wood, not with the wood, start with a table and a chair is different from a table is different from a chair. And there are so many other things that are made of wood. They all resolve into wood. You don't have to break the chair with an axe to see the wood. You look at the chair, you look at the table and say they all nothing. Touch wood is a very good example of that. I touch anything, and if I don't find anything, I touch wood. Where does that wood resolve? Into the tree. All the trees together become samashti tree. Each one arises out of an avyakta. Where is the tree? In the avyakta form, in the seed. And then if you take one more step, all the seeds in this come only from that one unchanging, all those words that Shastra uses, which you'll also see in the further mantras. One unchanging, akhanda, avikara vastu. That is the last stage. There is no more resolution. This resolution in English also is a good word to understand. I have a false notion. I have made mistakes and I made some assumptions. I resolve these false notions into what? Into the truth. That's Satyam. As you go on resolving, there's only Satyam left. Not the Satyam that we think of as Satyam as the truth and untruth, but the Satyam which is the very Adhisthana. I can't think of a better word than Adhisthana for the entire Jagat, all of which is assumption. The process given to us. So this mantra, Yached Vang Manasi Prajna, for the thinking person, the discriminative person, even this, if you read the word meanings, won't make much sense. Yached Vang Manasi Prajna. What is Yached? If you look at the dictionary, it probably says resolve into. But what do you mean by saying resolve into? In fact, it actually comes from a dhatu, da dhatu, to give. Very funny. But undergo certain words. So there are certain words like Pashya, etc. They undergo change and take on a different structure. Da dhatu also does that. Becomes yacha, yached, vidilingam. Who yached? Prajna. Who should, yached means what? Who should resolve? You have to say resolve means something has to resolve into something. Yached Vang Manasi. Manasi is our Saptami. That Vak resolves into the Manas. Vak means all the senses. It represents all the senses. They resolve into the Manas. Yat, that means Manas. Yached Jnana Atmani. Buddhau. Tasya Karane. So, that Manas, Yached again, Jnana Atmani. Jnana Atmani is again Saptami. Into the Buddhi. Then we have the next parao. Jnanam, Jnanamatmani, Mahati Niyached. Jnanam, Atmani Mahati Niyached. Atmani Mahati. Its own Atma, its own truth. Mahat. Mahat is very Nigarbha. You now gone to the next stage of taking the Vyashti and saying Vyashti comes from Samashti. Jnanam Atmani Mahati Niyached. Niyached is the same thing as Yached. And then that Tat Yached Shanta Atmani. Again, it uses the word Atmani, but qualified being Shanta Atmani. Mahati Atmani and Shanta Atmani. In that one ultimate Vastu, which is I, resolves into that. So you cross one level, do more mananam, cross another level, do more mananam, and that now becomes a subject for nididhyasanam. Every karyam, everything that comes from anything else is karanat ananyat. It's not different from the karana. Karyam karane pravilapayet. Same word, same meaning, pravilapayet, apadhatu. So the karanam you see in the form of the karyam. Karya rupena pashyati. Pashyet. May you see. In the chair, in the table, I see its karanam, the wood. And in the entire Jagat, the Prapancham, to be able to see Ishvara. The more Ishvara one brings in one's mind, that Yached here, resolve, not physically. I don't tear the fabric into pieces and say, this is made of yarn. I don't have to do that. I see the yarn despite seeing the fabric. I see Ishvara despite seeing all the objects in the Jagat. I see the same yarn when I see the fabric in the form of dhoti, the fabric in the form of angavastram, the fabric in the form of any other product. So it is only that much. knowing and being able to see what is the cause and eventually what is the root cause. There is a technique called root cause analysis. Suddenly I remembered that. Some of you might have used it in your professional work. Yeah. This is all the root cause analysis. We are trying to figure out what is that one indivisible which is the root cause of everything. So from that jnanam mahati atmani niyachet, that mahat atma, I'm sure the Acharya will talk more about the mahat atma, that samashti. If you go back to the physical example of the ratha, the Sarathi is the one which represents buddhi, intellect. All the intellects together. There is no intellect separate from the samashti intellect. I think I have a buddhi and I have an IQ of 130, whatever. But they're all same, samashti. The more one understands this, how to see the samashti in the vyashti, more easy does it become to deal with this jagat. In Swamiji's words, the more you Ishwarize one's life, more easy it becomes also to deal with life, but more importantly, to gain that jnanam which will take us to the next stage of understanding. More Ishvara, more understanding. That, therefore, one sees Ishvara samashti in everything, in all the varieties. Then you have very little possibility of inimical thinking, negative thinking. The bheda that we see between object and object in this jagat, between people and people, will gradually disappear. Will certainly get lessened, will disappear. Oh, God, very good. I have now come to a stage, I am a very evolved student of Vedanta. I have reached a stage where I can now understand Ishvara. I attribute everything to Ishvara, not mere words. Not mere words which says, I do arpana of everything to Ishvara. Those are words. Whatever I do, hey Bhagavan, I offer it to you. But good starting point. But the understanding of Ishvara, understanding of the oneness of everything in the Jagat. What is that one thing? One indivisible, akhanda, avikara, vastu. Hey, that is I. That understanding is Atmajnanam. That understanding is all that is required. That is, in other words, called moksha. That jnanam eva moksha. There is no other moksha. Everything then falls into place. Tad yached shanta atmani. Into the shanta atma. Shanta atma, again, you can't literally translate it. Sometimes people say pure atma. There is nothing like a pure atma, there is only atma. What is the impurity? There is nothing else. What can make it impure? There is nothing else. And that atma, aham. I am only that Chaitanya Swarupam. No shape, no vikara, no attributes, and therefore nothing can change. Is the I. Ultimate knowledge. Sa pashtha, sa kashta, sa paragatihi. If you literally translate this, what will it look like? Yached Vang Manasip Prajna. Prajna is the intelligent person, is a discriminative person. He should resolve. I told you this, Vidiling, Yached. May he resolve. Should he resolve? Should resolve. This speech into the mind. What does one make of it? And that mind, that tat manas, jnana atmani yachet, resolve that into the intellect. So we don't say this once, we say it over and over again. We look at different examples, whether it's a Ratha example, whether it's a fabric example, whether it's whatever example, to try and understand this. Everything is only order. Even the apparent disorder is order. At the smallest thing, and that order is the samashti. Governs everything. At the cosmic level, the sun and the moon and everything else runs by that cosmic order. The earth revolves around the sun by the cosmic order. The whole solar system goes around within its own galaxy. Earth rotates by its own order, Ishvara's order. Niyati. And within the Jagat, whatever happens in this Martya Loka that we are part of, everything's order. Ishvara's order. That Sarvamidam Tatam, that which pervades everything. By that order only everything operates. Up to this point, we're still talking Anatma. Even unto Ishvara, I'm still talking to Anatma. Only when I'm able to see, we're not a physical block saying that this is Atma, this is Anatma. Everything is only Atma. But in my thinking, in my guided thinking by the Shastra and by logic and analysis, by the Shastra Anukula Tarka, I look at all of these and say, okay, I have understood this much. All this is an Atma. Oh my God, Swamiji, you are saying Ishvara is an Atma? Yes. As long as Ishvara has attributes, Ishvaratvam, Jagat Karanam Brahma, he's got all the necessary intellect, he's got all the necessary material to create this Jagat. It's all real. The Jagat is there, Jagat is experienceable because I'm still in the Jagat. Therefore, I can experience the Jagat. As long as I look at Ishvara as in that form, that also I reduce to for my convenience into Rama, Krishna, Shiva, or whatever else I reduce it to. Therefore, you get all these serials, Devon ka Dev, Mahadev, yeah? Things like that. Yeah, otherwise, you can't have these serials. You have to have attributes. But Atma has no attributes. So up to this point where you have attributes, it is still an Atma. Only when one is able to visualize that and see that, say, that Ishvara, that Jiva, all the Jivas together, that attributes which create the differences are all Mrisha. They don't have any reality to them. My God, what a statement to make. All those things which drive us in this Jagat, within the Jagat. My strength, my intellect, my capability, my ignorance, all of them are only superimposed. Same thing with Ishvara's Ishvaratvam. That universal capability to create the Jagat. My God, what kind of capacity does that entity have to create so much variety and all perfect? Everyone runs in an order which is perfect. My Sharira runs like that. Can you imagine one little bit, and it does happen once in a while. That's also part of the order. We run to the doctor, he looks at it and says, your heart is not functioning properly. Hey, that's also part of the order. It is supposed to function up to a point, then it's supposed to reduce its function, then it is supposed to stop functioning altogether. All part of the order. Can you imagine a situation on this great earth of ours where nobody died? We talk about being burden on the earth, we'd really be burden on the earth at that time. There is an order. It is not disorder. It is order. It is Ishvara. And having come that far, separating all of these as anatma, I still have to understand what is Atma. What is this Atma? I have said all this, all the way from the objects of the world, the sukshma things, the thoughts, mind, senses, everything else, all of them I've examined and said they resolve into something else, they resolve into something else, they resolve into something else. And they eventually all resolve into Ishvara. Then what? Then I have to really think. There is no need to do physical research. It's all going on all over the world. There is a CERN in Switzerland which is still trying to find God particle. You can do that. You can try. Keep trying. You don't have to. It's all a matter of just knowledge. Thinking as scientists do at the highest level. In fact, they arrived at the possibility of there being a boson, a God particle, only by this kind of analysis. There is no need. You have emotional pain. Can you resolve that? Sure. Find out what caused it. What is the karanam? The pain resolves into the... This is how we do. What happens when somebody goes to a psychiatrist saying that I have this problem, mental problem? He will examine, maybe put you into regression, see what happened when you were 5 years old. Did your mother do something to you? Resolve into the cause of that. All emotional joy, emotional pain, physical pain, everything, the word we use is resolve. It resolves into its cause. If we can only think about it. Very simple, no? You have pain today, a physical pain or an emotional pain or whatever kind of pain, you can go to a psychologist and say, okay, what happened to me? Please tell me, help me understand. Or you can simply look at it and say, today this Sharira is undergoing certain pain as a result of karma done somewhere else, some other time, not somewhere, at some other time. Resolved. Resolved both from the perspective of dealing with that pain and from the perspective of getting to understand the truth. The truth of the pain is what the same jiva has done earlier. That's the truth of the pain. Karanam. You resolve everything. That means what? If you look at, again, go back to the example of fabric, and the fabric is inhered in and through, right through every possible level by the yarn. There is complete absorption, complete resolution into the yarn, which in turn resolves into the fiber and then go on and on and on. That resolution, yachet. May you see, may the intelligent person should see. That is nididhyasana. Where does everything resolve into? And then resolves into Ishvara, Manasi, Buddha. Then Atmani, Mahati. All that is fine. Where does that resolve? Into the real meaning of Aham. Into the real understanding of the nature of I. All of the false notions that one has gained, erasing them maybe little at a time. Tadi yachet shanta atmani. Literal translation, shanta atmani, what? Peaceful atma. No. Atma doesn't have any qualification. Doesn't need any qualification. It is I, aham. That the whole mantra is only for that one purpose of doing nididhyasanam of what we have heard earlier in mantra 10, 11, and maybe even 12. Where we have been pushed into saying, we may or may not have been able to do it. We've been pushed into doing shravanam, which should have taken us into the next stage of mananam, constantly examining that. And if we have done that, then this mantra becomes a wonderful mantra to do nididhyasanam. Yachet vang manasi prajnah tad yachet jnana atmani jnanam atmani mahati niyachet tad yachet shanta atmani. That is I. The very nature of the word aham. Bhashyakara starts this with a little two-word introduction and then talks about these. We will look at that tomorrow. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.